Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Mount Earl and today we will be discussing a new topic entitled Common Grammar Mistakes. So here are the lesson objectives for today's lesson. First, gain ways to address grammar in the writing classroom, and of course, deduce the relevance and implications of understanding issues in grammar teaching. Here are the purpose of grammar. Let's take this example. The first one is, let's eat, grandma. Okay, so upon hearing this means that you are gonna eat grandma. But on the second example, let's eat grandma. Okay, so using the correct punctuation marks. Okay, and that is part of the grammar. It is very clear that instead of the first sentence that you are going to eat your grandma, in the second statement, it is more accurate, or clearly stated that you are inviting grandma to eat with you. Okay, so there are clarity of meaning, readability, and credibility. And what are the types of errors? We have wrong word errors, punctuation errors, and usage errors. Now, let's dig deeper on the wrong word errors. So, these are the types of wrong word errors. We have spelling and typographic mistakes. So, don't just rely on spell check. That's true, especially if we are using gadgets just like laptops, if we are typing certain words. So there are words appearing, okay, that passively would be the best words to use, okay, but sometimes be careful with that because it will lead you to mistake. Next is wrong meaning. Okay, so you use by using a dictionary. Okay, be careful using the thesaurus. Watch out for words with the wrong shade of meaning or the wrong meaning altogether. We also have commonly confused words. So we have to spell check and won't catch this. These are the commonly confused words. There, and there. So what are the purpose of these words? Or how are we going to identify if what should be their purpose or functions when we use it in a sentence? The first one, there. Okay, so going to start. They're going to start. The word there is just a contraction of the word they and are. Okay, so that is there. The next given statement, the managers are in their weekly meeting. Okay, the functions of the word there in that statement is possessive. And on the last sentence, place the flowers there. Okay, the functions of the word there in this sentence is adverb, okay, indicating location or direction. Now, how about the word your and your? The first one, you're going to be a great writer. Okay, the functions of the word were is, okay, you are speaking with something, okay, telling him that he or she is a great writer, and that word is just a contraction of words you and are. The second one, your hair looks nice today. The word your is in a possessive form. Next, whose and whose. Whose with an apostrophe and s, who's on first base. That is a contraction of the words who and is. The next one, whose watch is this? Okay, so that is in a possession or possessive form. Next, it's with the apostrophe and s, it's and its. Then apostrophe. Well, the first it's a beautiful day. That is a contraction of it is. Next statement, download the program along with its README file. The function of it in the second sentence is possessive. How about the last one? It is not a word. Alright? Next is affect and effect. Okay, so we have the first sentence, the outage shouldn't affect anyone during work hours. The function of the word affect is verb, which means to act on or to influence. The second one, the outage shouldn't have any effect on users. Okay, so now let's see on the punctuation errors. The first one is about the comma. So use a comma and a coordinating conjunction and, but, for, or, nor, though, and yet to join two independent clauses. For example, the game was over, comma, but the crowd refused to leave. Next statement, yesterday was her birthday, comma, so they went out to dinner. Use commas after introductory clauses, phrases, or words that come before the main clause. Examples: while I was eating, the cat scratched at the door. Next statement, to get a seat, you'd better come early. And last statement, well, perhaps he meant no harm. Another, use commas to separate three or more words, phrases, or clauses written in a series. Example, the Constitution establishes the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Next, use commas to set apart a parenthetical phrase in a sentence. Example, my friend Jessica, who lives in Connecticut, is a yoga teacher. Another is a semicolon. So use a semicolon between two related independent clauses that are not joined by a conjunction. Example, the participants in the first study were paid. Those in the second were unpaid. Next, use a semicolon to separate elements in a series that already contains commas. Example, the students in the class were from Lynchburg, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Raleigh, North California. Another, use a semicolon to join two independent clauses when the second clause begins with a conjunctive adverb like however, therefore, moreover, furthermore, thus, meanwhile, nonetheless, otherwise, or a transition like in fact, for example, that is, for instance, in addition, in other words, on the other hand. Example, I really have no interest in politics. However, I do like to stay informed by watching the debates. Next is about colons. So use a colon to introduce a list preceded by an independent clause. Example, the application includes the following pieces: personal information, job, history, and references. Next, use a colon to separate an independent clause and a final phrase or clause that illustrates, extends, or amplifies the preceding thought. Example, they have agreed on the outcome. Informed participants perform better than do uninformed participants. Next, road construction in Dallas has hindered travel around town. Parts of Main, Fifth, and West Street are closed during the construction. Another is apostrophes. So what's its usage? Well, use an apostrophe to create a contraction, but don't use contractions in your academic writing. Example, I don't like him very much, instead of saying I do not like him very much. But anyways, both given statements are correct. Okay, so sometimes we just need, okay, to use this contraction. Then use an apostrophe to form a possessive noun. Example, my mother's job is better than all my brother's jobs put together. Okay, so we use the apostrophe, okay? Instead of saying the job of my mother is better than all my brother's jobs put together. Next example is Dickens' later works are much darker than his early novels. Next, do not use an apostrophe to form a plural. Next, remember that it's, which is it is, but its is possessive. Now let's have the quotation marks. If the sentence ends with the quotation and if there is no parenthetical citation, put your final mark of punctuation inside the quotation marks. Example, okay, in this sentence, that dog is as big as a horse. Next, if the sentence continues after the quotation, you'll usually need a comma after your quotation, but before your final quotation marked. Example, I wish this workshop were over, John said. Okay, as you see, the first given example is a direct quotation. For example, your friend told it exactly. On the second statement, for example, John is your friend, and you just quoted, okay, what John has said earlier. That's why we use the quotation marks, okay, over the statement quoted, and then followed by the person, okay, who said the word. And then other usage of quotation marks, if the quotation ends in an exclamation point or question mark, we are going to omit the comma. Example, I hate going to dentist, John believed. Next, if your sentence ends with a footnote, put the superscript number after your final mark of punctuation. Example, according to Car and Driver, the Denali is among the most agile of full-sized sport utility vehicles. Next, if the sentence ends with a parenthetical citation, omit the punctuation at the end of the quotation, unless it is a question mark or an exclamation point. Example, according to Car and Driver, the Denali is among the most agile of full-sized sport utility vehicles. Year 2020. Now let's have the usage errors. First is fragment. A complete sentence must have three components. So what are these components? First, a subject. Who is the actor in the sentence? Number two, a predicate, which is the verb or action. And third, a complete thought. It can stand alone and make sense. In other words, a fragment is an incomplete sentence. Example, it cannot, another explanation, it cannot stand alone and does not express a complete thought. Some fragments lack either a subject or verb or both. Next, dependent clauses are also fragments if they stand alone. Actually, in some cases, if even we have or created a good sentence having a subject and predicate. If we lack putting, okay, the proper punctuation marks, or if we forget putting punctuation marks, so it's not considered a sentence. Sometimes this is also called a fragment. Next, example of fragment sentence. Went out of the business after Starbucks coffee opened. Okay, we cannot see what's the point here. Okay, there are just something being done. Okay, so who are or who is the subject? Next, one of my friends who won a contest by playing a variety of instruments. Okay, on the second sentence, okay, we have the subject. Okay, but what's going on? What's matter? Okay, after having or after winning a contest, okay, by playing a variety. So what happened? A variety of instruments, I mean. Next is, since I went fishing. Okay, so we have here the subject. Okay, and then, so what's wrong? Or what happened next after you went fishing? Okay, so that is a fragment sentence because it lacks of supporting details or information, so that the readers, for example, or the one you are talking with, could understand what's happening or what's going on. Next, proceed to run-on sentences. So a run-on sentence is sentence comprised of two or more independent clauses, not properly separated. It also lacks of punctuation and or conjunctions. Next is incorrect punctuation. Another, a comma is placed, wherein two independent clauses joined by a comma is a run-on sentence. And then it is also not simply a long sentence. Long sentences can be grammatically correct. During the 1960s, development thinking encompassing both ideology and strategy prioritized economic growth and application of modern scientific and technical knowledge as the route to prosperity in the underdeveloped world, and define the global development problem as one in which less developed nations needed to catch up with the West and enter the modern age of capitalism and liberal democracy. In short, to engage in a form of modernization that was equated with westernization and unassociated faith in the rationality of science and technology. I said this article is composed of 86 words. Now, examples of run-on sentences. First, my favorite Mediterranean spread is hummus. It is very garlicky. Next, it is nearly 5:30. We cannot reach town before dark. How about dangling participles? Well, a dangling participle is a word or phrase that modifies a word not clearly stated or an unintended noun in the sentence. Correcting dangling participles such as reword the sentence, provide the missing information. After resting in the cellar, my brother brought up some oranges. Next, featuring plug-in circuit boards, we can strongly endorse. This serves flexibility and growth potential. Having finished the assignments, the TV was turned on. How about the verb tense? So, verb tenses should be consistent throughout your writing. You have to reviews of literature should be on the present tense. Historical events should be in the past tense. Next is correcting tense shifts. How is it? So be consistent throughout your sentences and paragraphs. Be familiar with verb forms and tenses. So we have now the tense shift examples. Okay. About noon, the sky darkened, a breeze sprang up, and a low rumble announces the approaching storm. We viewed a Caribbean mystery and watched intently as Joan Hickson portrays Agatha Christie's Miss Marple. Another, I climbed out of the car, walked through the door, and prepared to meet the parents. But instead, a large honey-colored dog ran to meet me at the door. How about the pronoun antecedent agreement? So pronouns are words that take the place of nouns. Antecedents are the words that the pronouns refer to. Pronouns must agree with their antecedents in number, gender, and person. So what is number? It could be singular or plural form. Next, gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter, or those who are not living things. Person, first, second, or third person. So, example of agreement error examples. Everyone should make their own decisions. Next, each speaker maintained their points. Now let's proceed with the subject and verb agreement. Well, singular subjects must have singular verbs. Plural subjects must also have plural verbs. Rule of thumb: subjects ending in S are plural, and verbs ending in S are singular. But of course, there is exemption when we say subjects ending in S are plural. For example, the word mathematics, politics, economics, okay, those words are, okay, plural in form but singular in meaning. Okay, so that is exemption. Next is correcting agreements errors. Become familiar with the regular verb forms. Focus on the subject, not any additional modifiers. Okay, so the bags of ornaments belong in the attic. Next, so these are examples. High levels of mercury occurs in some fish. And then what we need are more pads and pans. So how are we going to prevent the errors? Next, editing yourself. And how are we going to do this? Well, of course, we have to learn the rules. Next, plan ahead. Leave yourself enough time to edit. Next, know your writing weaknesses. And then read aloud or in verse. And of course, don't be afraid to delete. Alright? Because having the editing process could make our writings better. And okay, so these are the example of available resources if you are going to understand this. Okay, so we have the books, web services, we also have the people. Okay, there are also writing centers. Okay, so those are. And then, well, anyways, talking with the grammar rules, there are less of rules in terms of grammar, but there are this that we must always remember. Okay, just like the proper use of active voice. Okay, linking ideas with a conjunction. Use a comma to connect two ideas as one. Okay, use the semicolon to join two ideas. Okay, add ed to verbs for past tense. What else? Use present perfect for the unfinished past and the likes. So we have here again as we talk about grammar. So this is the rules about how to speak and write in a language. So there are a list of 5 most common grammatical mistakes. The first, subject-verb agreement. So learners often get confused with using the appropriate form of the verb with the subject of the sentence. For example, I live in Thailand and he lives in Thailand is the correct subject-verb agreement of the verb to live. Next, possessive nouns. Example, non-native speakers of the language are unsure about showing possession while writing or speaking in English. For example, the book belonging to the girl can also be referred to as the girl's book. The next one, comparison of adjectives. So we have here, we add er to compare short adjectives like pretty and think. And we add more for longer adjectives like handsome and intelligent. Next, punctuation mistakes. So punctuation errors too are very common, especially in the use of semicolons and comma. Lastly, singular and plural. So many learners make mistakes in forming the plural form of singular nouns. Alright, so above all things, the grammar rules is the best thing that we must be familiar with so that we can be effective in writing or we can be better in our writing processes. And here are the list of references for this subject. And I hope you learned something or gained something about the grammar. And again, this is Mom Earl, and thank you so much for viewing.